Welcome to the audio adaptation of William Z. Foster's The Crisis in the Socialist Party. Chapter 3. A Generation of Reformism and Its Disastrous Effects. Continued. 2. The War Against the Left Wing. In analyzing the basic reason for the historical failure of the Socialist Party, which was its lack of Marxian policy of class struggle, let us now consider briefly the Socialist Party's experience with the second element going to make up such a policy of class struggle, i.e., the necessity of laying a firm foundation for the Socialist Party by the cultivation of a strong body of revolutionary Marxist understanding in the party membership and among its mass following. In doing this, we shall see the opportunist Socialist Party leaders have violated this fundamental no less deeply and consistently than they did the other imperative essential of a class struggle policy, which we have previously discussed. That of giving effective leadership to the masses in their daily struggles, and with equally disastrous results. The two wings of the party. Before describing this war against the left wing, it will be well briefly to analyze the Socialist Party groups. The right wing, which dominated the Socialist Party from the organization down to the present year, was, during the heyday of the party, made up of several groups. Chiefly these were: A. The extreme right, roughly, the Bernstein revisionist tendency, was composed of miscellaneous groups of lawyers, doctors, preachers, etc., such as Harriman, Berger, Kahan, Stokes, Wilson, Mills, Hone, Laidler, et al. Previously, I've indicated the general reformist tendency of this group: government ownership, municipal socialism, parliamentary reform, anti-class struggle, etc. B. The agrarian group, also of extreme right tendency, was strong in the farming districts of Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Washington, etc. It was a remnant of the breakup of the old populist movement and generally supported the line of right-wing intellectuals, with the addition of its cheap money vagaries and particularly utopian slant to its socialism. This tendency crystallized chiefly around such papers as Wayland's Coming Nation, Appeal to Reason, and Arkansas Ripsaw. C. The trade union group was composed of labor officials like Van Leer, Johnston, machinists, Walker, Germer, Hayes, miners, Hayes, printers, Barnes, cigar makers, Moorer, plumbers, Skemp, painters, Scheisinger, ILGWU, etc. In general, this opportunist group also followed the lead of the right-wing intellectuals, except that they placed more stress upon trade union questions. D. The so-called center on or Kautsky tendency was composed mainly of petty bourgeois intellectuals. It included Hilkett, Simons, O'Neill, Lee, etc. These people were sticklers for Marxian phrases, if not for Marxian deeds. This group gave the Socialist Party its dominant leader for 34 years, Morris Hilkett. Historically, these four reformist groups functioned unitedly as the right wing of the Socialist Party, especially in the war against the left wing, and they had the backing chiefly of the non-proletarians and the skilled worker members of the party. It is true that Hilkett Center group kept up a running quarrel for years with the raw opportunism of the extreme right-wing post-office socialism elements, but this fight was superficial and did not conflict with the basically reformist line of the party. The only serious differences that developed between the broad right-wing were during the war, when the pro-war Spargo, Stokes, Walling et al. Quit the party. After the national split of 1919, the four right groups, or what was still left of them, gradually coalesced and became practically indistinguishable from one another in one crassly opportunist old guard leadership. The left wing of the Socialist Party was more homogeneous than the right wing. It was made up almost entirely proletarians, chiefly unskilled and immigrant workers, with an occasional revolutionary intellectual. Though its 20 years of history within the Socialist Party, it was led by such figures as Haggerty, Troutman, Titus, Marcy, Haywood, and Ruthenberg. Debs was usually a militant spokesman of the left-wing program, but he took no active part in shaping party policy and conventions, etc. He never identified himself with the left in its organized struggles against the right, nor did he become involved in any of the various party splits. It was obviously an indispensable first condition for the success of the Socialist Party that it systematically educate the broadest possible ranks of Marxian revolutionists. Such revolutionists furnish the necessary understanding of the capitalist system. They are the tireless organizers of the masses, the bravest fighters in every class, the indefatigable builders of the party, the heart and brain of the class struggle. To try to build a revolutionary socialist party without developing the Marxian understanding of its own membership is to attempt the classically impossible task of making bricks without straw. This would seem to be a pretty self-evident fact, but the Socialist Party has grossly ignored it throughout its existence. The right-wing, petty bourgeois intellectuals controlling the Socialist Party, instead of carefully cultivating the life-giving revolutionary tendency, looked up on it as a hostile force, and they spared no efforts to check it, to repress it, to extinguish it, indeed to burn it out of the party. This action on their part was logical enough, as they had no intention whatever of making the Socialist Party a revolutionary party. In this ruthless war against the left wing, continued for a generation, it is to be found a fundamental reason for the failure of the Socialist Party and for its present critical condition. The left wing took flat issue with the whole reformist line of the dominant right-wing intellectual leadership. Basing itself upon the fundamentals of Marx and Engels, it fought to give the Socialist Party a program and policy of revolutionary class struggle. It opposed the current opportunist theories of the peaceful taking over of the government and the plan of buying up the industries, and it placed in opposition to them the Marxian perspective of the overthrow of capitalism by open struggle and the expropriation of the expropriators without compensation. It condemned the Socialist Party leaders' passivity to the daily struggle and their class collaboration policies and compromises with Gomperism. It demanded a program of active struggle against employers and a war to knife against the capitalist-minded leaders of the trade unions. Although the left wing was the revolutionary element within the party, it nevertheless suffered from many and serious theoretical and practical weaknesses, arising mainly out of its inexperience and ideological unripeness. These errors in general tended in the direction of the left sectarianism. They were largely a heritage from Unionism and were usually semi-syndicalist in nature. Among the more important of these left-wing errors were 1. Confusion regarding the nature of the revolutionary role of the party, with tendencies to make the industrial unions the fighting force of the proletariat. 2. Wrong theories of the composition of the future dictatorship of the proletariat, with tendencies toward the syndicalist trade union state. 3. Underestimation of the resistance power of capitalism and theories of accomplishing the revolution by a folded arms general strike. 4. Underestimation of the struggle for immediate political demands and tendencies towards anti-parliamentarism. 5. Neglect of work within the mass trade unions and a utopian belief in dual industrial unionism. 6. Underestimation of the importance of the farming, Negro, and lower petty bourgeois masses as united front allies for the proletariat. Further sectarian tendencies were against the Labor Party in principle, overstress upon the religious question, and the ignoring and flouting of American traditions and cultures. These various theoretical and practical errors of the left wing worked greatly to hold back the progress of the party. They tended to break its contacts with the masses and to push the party into sectarian isolation. And, added to this, they handicapped the fight against the right wing, for right opportunism cannot be defeated with left sectarianism. But the overwhelming responsibility for the failure of the Socialist Party is to be found in the rank opportunism of the dominant petty bourgeois leadership, and not in the weakness of the left. Despite its many errors, the left was basically correct in its striving for a class struggle policy. It was the healthy party core, and only through the correction of the shortcomings in the development of its general program of class struggle was it possible to build the Socialist Party into a revolutionary party. It must be added, however, that this political line of the right wing is no sense served to correct the errors of the left wing. Its tendency was to drag the party off in another direction, to the swamp of right opportunism. The right The long-continued struggle between the right and left wings, the highlights of which I shall now proceed to relate, placed the issue squarely. Shall the Socialist Party be a party of petty bourgeois reform or proletarian class struggle? The cleavage was fundamental, and the protracted fight took on the character of class struggle within the party, so that during the various splits in many local branches, the line of division passed almost exactly between the proletarians and the non-proletarians, the working class elements going with the left wing out of the party. That the Socialist Party failed to become revolutionary party is example and expression of the fact that the left wing was defeated in its struggle for control of the party and was compelled to build a new revolutionary organization, the Communist Party. Early phases of the inter-party struggle. Hardly had the Socialist Party come into existence in 1901 as a result of the historically justified split away from the deadly sectarianism of the Socialist Labor Party, then the fatal control of the reformist lawyers, doctors, preachers, journalists asserted itself, and likewise, as the corrective to these baneful elements and tendencies, the revolutionary left wing of the party slowly began to take shape and voice its program. With the passage of the years, the cleavage beyond the right and left wings of the party became more pronounced, until finally the inevitable complete break came. The first sharp division in the party on a major scale occurred in 1905 over the question of industrial unionism, which, then as now, was bound with the whole question of militant trade union policies. The left wing, repelled by the reactionary leadership and program of the AFL, was for establishing new and independent revolutionary industrial unions, and the right wing, opposed fighting policies generally, was against it. Under the leadership of Debs, Haywood, and de Leon, of the Socialist Labor Party, the Industrial Workers of the World was formed in Chicago in 1905. In his autobiography, Haywood notes the division between right and left over the IWW convention, stating that none of the politicians of the Socialist Party, such as Berger, Hilkett, Spargo, or Hayes, took part. The factional struggle soon spread from the question of industrial unionism to many phases of the party's theory and practice. The period in question was one of growing working class organization and class consciousness under the fierce pressure of expanding American capitalism. It was a time of many bitter strikes, of which the bloody Chicago Teamsters strike of 1905 with 21 killed and 451 wounded was an example. Since 1898, the AFL had increased its membership from 270,000 to 1.5 million. The Socialist Party had reflected this rising tide of working-class militancy, its membership increasing from 12,000 in 1901 to 41,000 in 1909, and its influence rapidly growing in the trade unions. The left-wing demand for a class struggle policy by the party became stronger, and new left leaders developed. Increasingly, the clash grew between the revolutionary elements and the petty bourgeois leadership. The former wanted to make the party into a real fighting instrument of the working class. The latter wanted to follow a policy of reformism and compromise. Tension was acute, especially in the several states in the far west, where the best organized and most revolutionary sections of the party were located. The first serious split occurred in the Pacific Northwest, early in 1909. The split took place in Everett, Washington. The leaders of the lefts was Dr. H.T. Titus, editor of the Seattle Socialist, and the head of the right wing was Dr. E.J. Brown, in later years mayor of Seattle on a fusion ticket. The struggle centered around the question of reformist petty bourgeois domination of the party and against the suppression of the revolutionary elements in their program of struggle. The left wing was supported mostly by lumber workers, city laborers, and stump farmers, whereas the right wing drew its support chiefly from the petty businessmen, intellectuals, skilled workers, and farmers. The left wing behind it a majority of the party members, but when the convention assembled, the right wing, which controlled the party machinery, had managed to scare up a majority of the delegates. A split ensued, and in consequence, there were two socialist parties in the state, whereupon the opportunist-controlled National Executive Committee recognized the right-wing claims, excluding the lefts, and including myself from the party. This blow of the right-wing Socialist Party leadership was characteristic of their growing war against the revolutionary element in the party. Its consequence was, of course, serious to injure the party. Hundreds of the best members, not only in Washington, but also to a lesser extent in Oregon, Idaho, and California, were driven out of the party and never returned to it. Most of them, like myself, joined the IWW and became syndicalists. The whole affair was a criminal waste of good proletarian fighters, the real builders of the party, by reformist leadership. But this rupture was soon to be followed by another, also forced by the opportunist Socialist Party policies and leaders, and far more disastrous to the party, the big national split of 1912. The 1912 split. In this period, the working class was in a state of great foment. The trade unions were growing rapidly and conducting many bitterly fought strikes. The IWW was achieving a spectacular advance with the Lawrence textile strike and several other big struggles. The Socialist Party was growing rapidly and making fast headway in gaining leadership in the trade unions. It was also the time of the Roosevelt Bull Moose movement. All this militancy and struggle of the toiling masses emphasized the futility of the reformist policies of the Socialist Party leadership and stressed the need for a program of class struggle. But the opportunist leadership clung firmly to their reformist line. The struggle between the right and left wings of the party quickly spread and sharpened. The left wing, grown strong in this period of mass awakening, had built a strong national movement around the International Socialist Review, published by the Kerr Co., and the chief figures were Bill Haywood and Mary Marcy. This center circulated the works of Marx and Engels, rooted revolutionary speakers, printed revolutionary pamphlets, and developed the left-wing theory and practice on current events. Inevitably, this left center came into direct conflict with the national office of the Socialist Party, which systematically played down revolutionary theory and agitation of every sort and poured out a flood of reformist propaganda. In consequence, a struggle for organizational control of the party developed, and the whole situation came to a climax in the May of 1912 Socialist Party Convention. The immediate program of the left wing in this crucial fight centered around three major issues: against the opportunist petty bourgeois control of the party, for a policy of militant industrial unionism, and against the parliamentary opportunism and vote-catching policies of the leadership. The left-wing program at this stage was stated in Haywood's and Bond's pamphlet, Industrial Socialism. This program contained many characteristic semi-syndicalist errors, such as the underestimation of the role of the party and the importance of partial political demands, illusions about dual industrial unionism, etc. But the essence of it was the traditional and correct aim of the left wing to give the Socialist Party a policy of class struggle. The outcome of the convention was a major defeat for the left wing, which was beaten on all its main questions. Firstly, it lost in the matter of displacing the opportunist leadership, because during the pre-convention elections, so many petty bourgeois elements got themselves elected as delegates that the convention was infested with and completely dominated by all sorts of careerist lawyers, journalists, doctors, etc. Secondly, it lost also on the question of industrial unionism, for although the convention endorsed industrial unionism in principle, it took no steps to put into effect through correcting the opportunist policies of the party leaders into the AFL and by liquidating the dual unionism of the left wing. But the left wing suffered its decisive defeat on the general question of parliamentary opportunism. The left wing's essential position was against the party being merely a vote-catching body and wanted it to become a revolutionary propaganda organization and led in developing broad mass struggles, especially on the economic field. But the right wing was skillful enough to evade the main issue. It shifted the attack from its own political opportunism and narrowed the fight down to an assault on the left wing's advocacy of sabotage. Sabotage at the time was very popular in the French syndicalist movement, and it had been taken up by the IWW and the left wing for the Socialist Party. It was the poorest possible issue for the left wing to defend, and the convention voted 190 to 91 against it, adopting notorious Article 2, Section 6 amendment in the party constitution, which ran, quote, "Any member of the party who opposes political action or advocates crime, sabotage, or other methods of violence as a weapon of the working class to aid in its emancipation shall be expelled from the party, expelled from the membership in the party." End quote. The basic meaning of all this ran far beyond the suppression of the advocacy of sabotage. It meant that the party leadership had rejected the policy of class struggle and had turned still deeper into the reformism that was killing the party. Its lawyer, doctor, preacher heads were determined to wipe out the revolutionary tendency in the party, and they followed up this convention victory by having Haywood recalled by referendum from the National Executive Council. Thus, Bill Haywood, the revolutionary fighter who was worth several carloads of the opportunist intellectuals who were running and ruining the Socialist Party, was not deemed worthy of sitting upon the party's executive. The elimination of Haywood was a logical climax to the leadership's long and fatal war against the left wing and its program of class struggle, the war that brought about the historic failure of the Socialist Party. The outcome of the 1912 convention was a real disaster to the Socialist Party, one from which it never fully recovered. The deadly grip of the petty bourgeois leadership was strengthened, and their opportunist policies more deeply entrenched. A sort of silent split developed. Thousands of these proletarian members, Haywood among them, quitting the party in disgust, never to return, many of them going to syndicalism and the IWW. Thus, the party was drained of its best blood, and the loss of all these workers and basic party builders soon showed itself in the real decline of the organization. The party dropped in membership from 118,000 in 1912, the highest point it had ever reached in all its history, to 79,000 in 1915. Its national election vote fell from 897,000 in 1912 to 585,000 in 1916. And, of decisive importance, its previously rapid advance in the trade unions was stopped, and the Socialist Party lost its opportunity to win the leadership of the AFL. Reformism had dealt a major blow to the Socialist Party. The 1912 split, however, could not be a decisive fight between the reformist and revolutionary forces in the Socialist Party. The Second International, which was not yet discredited by its betrayal in the World War and in the accompanying revolutionary struggles, still had great prestige as the revolutionary organization of the working class, as the party of Marx and Engels. Hence, its ultra-opportunist American section also retained the power to attract revolutionary workers. Moreover, the Socialist Party left wing, still saturated with sectarian and syndicalist tendencies, was yet insufficiently developed ideologically to build a separate revolutionary party. So, with the great vitality and persistence which bespeaks the correctness of its revolutionary line, the left wing, recovering from the disastrous 1912 defeat, began once more to build the Socialist Party and to organize its forces and program within it. But the opportunism of the Socialist Party leadership was soon the cause of a complete break between the reformist right and the revolutionary left, and the call into being the Communist Party. The 1919 split. The 1919 split in the American Socialist Party was part of the worldwide break between the reformist and the revolutionary elements in the Second International, the split that gave birth to the Communist International. It was the inevitable culmination of the growing antagonisms for years past between the revolutionists and the opportunists in the world socialist movement. It was directly caused by the Second International's support of the World War, by its antagonism to the Russian Revolution, and by its betrayal of the revolutionary struggles of the workers in Germany, Hungary, and other European countries at the close of the war. These great world events, of course, had profound repercussions in the American Socialist Party. They brought to the breaking point the long-developing tension between the right and left wings of the party, and made it impossible for the mutually antagonistic reformist and revolutionary elements to live within the one political organization. In the vital question of the war, we have seen the left wing of the American Socialist Party had energetically opposed the whole wartime course of the Second International, condemned the action in its parties which supported the war, and strongly resisted America's entry into and prosecution of the war. But the right-wing leaders of the party, under cover of radical phrases, compromised with the world situation in typical reformist manner. This brought to an acute stage the struggle between the two groups. The controversy within the party over the Russian Revolution also added fuel to the spreading conflagration. The rapidly growing left wing heartily supported the revolution and accepted its great revolutionary lessons, including the fundamental principles laid down by Lenin. but the right wing hated the Russian Revolution as the very victory symbol of the revolutionary spirit which they had fought against for so many years in the American Socialist Party. They rejected Lenin's teachings and placed the work of the great revolutionarist since Marx upon the banned books list, where they still remain until this day, all of which deeply embittered the left wing. The growing struggle between the right and left wings of the party was further spread and intensified by social democracy's betrayal of the German Revolution at the end of the war through the liquidation of the Soviets set up by the workers, soldiers, and sailors. This treacherous act which saved capitalism throughout Central Europe, and to which the present-day Hitler can trace his power, met with the approval of the American right wing and the bitter hostility of the left. Thus, in this series of great events, the Socialist Party in the United States as well as abroad was hopelessly split ideologically by the reactionary course of its opportunist leaders. The long years of struggle within the American Socialist Party, as is other countries, had come to a climax. The two wings of the party were at open war with each other. It was the parting of the ways between the two conflicting tendencies within the party, between the policies of class struggle and class collaboration, between the revolutionists who were determined to overthrow capitalism and the opportunists who wanted to reform it. Inevitably, the deep ideological split also took organizational form. And logically, it was the right wing, in line with the long struggle to kill the revolutionary tendency, that took the actual initiative of splitting the party. Briefly, the break developed thus. The revolutionists, led by C.E. Rothenberg, and organized first in the Socialist Propaganda League, Boston 1915, and later in the left wing of the Socialist Party, New York, June 1919, had the support of the majority of the party membership, and in 1919, they elected 12 out of 15 members in the National Executive Committee of the Socialist Party. But the right wing, which controlled the party apparatus, repudiated this election and, in order to dominate the approaching emergency convention, suspended several language federations and the whole Michigan State Party organization. Much of the AFL Executive Council lately ousted the CIO. At the convention itself, in Chicago, August 30th, 1919, the Rights, with the help of the police, expelled all known left-wing delegates. The split was thus completed. At last, the right wing had succeeded in its historic aim of getting rid of the revolutionary element from the Socialist Party, but the ruinous consequences to the Socialist Party of the criminal expulsion of the party's best forces, its very lifeblood, were not long in showing themselves. The 1919 split turned out to be even more disastrous to the Socialist Party than that of 1912. Within a year, the party's membership dropped from 104,000 to 26,000, and by 1927 had fallen to but 7,475. The influence of the party in the trade unions declined swiftly, and its vote in the presidential elections of 1928, a total of 262,000 votes, was hardly more than 25% of its vote in 1920. Socialist representation in state and local legislative bodies fell to but a small fraction of its former strength. The party went generally into decay, and its once extensive press was almost wiped out. Its opportunist leaders, with the left wing no longer on hand to restrain them, completely abandoned all fight against the AFL reactionaries and joined with them in their whole program of B&O plan to speed up labor banking, expulsion of communists, anti-Soviet slander, etc. Thus, almost to zero in numbers, influence, and revolutionary principle, the bankrupt Socialist Party drank to the dregs the bitter cup of its opportunist petty bourgeois leadership with their fatal reformist policies, relentless war against the left wing. The Communist Party. In consequence of the 1919 split, the flag of socialism passed from the hands of the Socialist Party. By 20 years of opportunism and the failure the Socialist Party petty bourgeois leaders had shown that they would make no fight for the revolutionary socialism, a new socialist standard bearer, a revolutionary party, was necessary, and it was formed, the Communist Party. In previous splits, 1909 and 1912, the expelled left wing, because of its ideological undevelopment, had either liquidated itself into IWW, syndicalism, or dribbled back individually into the Socialist Party. But not so in 1919. The revolutionaries, unacquainted now, acquainted now with the principles of Leninism and educated by the great events of the war and the post-war revolutions, had matured theoretically. By 1919, the left wing had cleared up and was rapidly doing so. Its traditional semi-syndicalist errors on such questions as the role of the state, the question of the dictatorship of the proletariat, the seizure of power, the role of the party and the trade unions, etc. In short, as Alex Biddleman says, it had advanced from vague left socialism and general proletarian militancy to the definite and solid foundations of Leninism. Hence, on August 31st and September 1st, 1919, in Chicago, the split-off left-wing Socialist Party organized itself into two communist parties. Between these, however, there was little difference in principle, so finally, 2 years later, they fused into one united Communist Party. Here is not the place for a history of the Communist Party. The student can find this in Biddleman's 15 Years of the Communist Party, Browder's Communism in the United States, and What is Communism?, Bimba's History of the American Working Class, and my forthcoming book, From Bryan to Stalin. In this study of the Socialist Party, I cannot give even an outline of the Communist Party's development and policy. Suffice it to say, the Communist Party has based itself firmly upon the class struggle policy which the Socialist Party throughout its history rejected. It has come forward energetically in the measure of its strength as the leader of the masses in their daily fights against the capitalist exploiters, and it has systematically cultivated revolutionary Marxism-Leninism among its own membership and mass following. And the general result of this correct policy of class struggle is the present unity, growth, and expanding influence of the Communist Party. As was to be expected, the development of the Revolutionary Party in the greatest stronghold of capitalism was no bed of roses. On the one hand, there had to be overcome, with the help of the Communist International, the harmful, semi-syndicalist sectarian conceptions inherited by the left wing from the past, and this was not accomplished, and a revolutionary program developed without sharp internal struggles and many serious errors in the practical work of the party. And on the other hand, there had to be withstood the fierce attacks of the capitalists and their agents, including severe governmental persecution, widespread expulsion from the trade unions and industry by reactionary union officials working with the bosses, etc. But the Communist Party had prospered in spite of all these difficulties. It was now unified and healthy, and its membership and influence are consistently growing. The party's recent membership figures show 1930, 7,500, 1931, 9,000, 1932, 14,000, 1933, 18,000, 1934, 26,000, 1935, 30,000, 1936, 41,000 plus 11,000 members in the Young Communist League, or 52,000 in all. Wherever the fight is hottest there in the Communist Party, it is to be found organizing the toilers for a united front stand against the exploiters, not to mention its many big struggles of past years, including the long fight for amalgamation and the Labor Party, the fight against the B&O plan, the long struggle against corruption and gangsterism in the unions, the big 1930 through 1933 fights of the unemployed, the many strike and struggles of 1933 through 1935, notably the San Francisco strike, etc. The Communist Party, with its broad united front policy, is playing an active role in every front in the class struggle. Here I can mention only a few of the Communist Party's chief current activities. At the present time, it has mobilized the support of at least 5 million workers and others in support of the Workers' Unemployment Insurance Bill, H.R. 2827. It is playing an important part in the American Youth Congress, with its convention at Cleveland July 3, 1936, had 1,400 delegates representing a membership of 1.7 million. The Communist Party is likewise a vital factor in the American League Against War and Fascism, a movement which held its third Congress in Cleveland in January 1936, with an attendance of 2,070 delegates from 1,840 organizations of 3.2 million members. The party's role was also one of significant importance in the organization of the Great United Front National Negro Congress in Chicago, February 1936, of 1,817 delegates representing 1.2 million members organized in the trade unions, churches, youth clubs, etc. In all these United Front movements of the Communist Party is an official participant. It has also taken active part in the present big drive of the CIO to organize the steel, auto, rubber, and other mass production industries. In addition, the party is active in developing the Farmer Labor Party movement. This was acknowledged when, at the May 30th, 1936 Farmer Labor Conference in Chicago, attended by prominent leaders in the Minnesota Farmer Labor Party, the Amalgamated Clothing Workers, many labor parties, etc., the Communist Party delegates were officially seated. A most important present activity of the Communist Party, and evidence of its growing mass influence in its militant fight against the suspension of the CIO unions by the AFL Executive Council, up to the present writing 20 state federations, 70 central bodies, and international unions and hundreds of locals have protested this suspension. The masses of trade unionists are enraged at the attempt of Green, Hutchison, and Co. to split the labor movement, and the Communist Party has been very active in crystallizing this mass resentment in the concrete action. The CIO to date has bestirred itself very little in organizing this protest, and as for the Socialist Party, prostrated for its hesitant attitude and internal chaos, it has made virtually no fight whatsoever to preserve the unity of the trade union movement. The growth and accomplishments of the Communist Party are, of course, very modest in comparison with the great revolutionary tasks ahead. The party also still has many weaknesses and insufficiencies to have been corrected, but the important thing is that the party is on the right track. Its fundamental program of class struggle is correct, its policies of the broad united front are successful, and it's learning to apply them effectively. This is amply proven by the revolutionary Communist Party's record of growth and progress, in comparison with the historical failure of the reformist Socialist Party. The Communist Party is becoming a major political factor in the country, while the Socialist Party flounders along in crisis and decline, all of which goes to show that the many years' fight between rights and lefts in the American Revolutionary Movement, the lefts were profoundly correct. Not along the road of reformism, but of class struggle, is the way the workers have to go to achieve socialism.